a brand new book for Toronto music fans. It's called The Flyer Vault, 150 years of Toronto concert history, written by Rob Bowman and our guest today. Please welcome Daniel Tate, everybody. Daniel's there.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
There you go.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. Forward by Geddy Lee.
You might have heard of him.
Yeah. It's a very interesting book. We're just leafing through it now. What's your background, though? Are you a music writer? Are you an artist?
I work in IT.
Of course.
But
of course
no.
you do, because you rode your bike here.
Right.
Can you have a look at our situation?
Yeah, we'll
we've got
talk
a great
after.
company.
Yeah, we do.
We need to upgrade the network. But no, I do have a music background. Well, notwithstanding the fact that my first rock concert was 1987. My dad took me to see the Beach Boys at Kingswood.
Nice.
Although Brian Wilson wasn't there, so I'm not sure if it counts. But that was my first show. And I kind of grew up through the 90s and started going to a lot of like underground raves and sketchy warehouse parties. And throughout the 90s, parlayed that into a gig working for a concert company. And then that sort of bankrolled me through university. Fast forward to today, and I ended up moving away from the music industry and moving into IT.
Was CFNY your station of choice in the 80s and 90s?
Probably Energy 108.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
With Chris Shepard?
Yeah, Chris Shepard, MC Flipside, Mastermind. I listened to a lot of community radio like CKLN.
You may have heard of CFNY The Edge. It was also very popular in the 90s.
Yeah, it was.
In fact, that Chris Shepard fellow used to work with the old man and I.
He's a legend in this city. He's definitely a private individual. It's hard to kind of figure out where he is.
Well,
or
we
what
had
he's
him on the
up
show.
to.
We had him on the show a couple of years.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, we worked with him
Oh,
for quite
amazing.
some time.
I gotta listen to that.
No, but we were actually working with Chris for quite a long time.
But he actually, I gave him a call one day, and he actually came in our old studio, and it was quite fascinating. He's quite the eccentric.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a pioneer in this city, for sure, especially where the rave scene is concerned, electronic music.
So these concerts in the book, the Flyer, why is it called the Flyer Vault?
Because
of the flyering of concerts?
Yeah, so I was working on the street team for this concert company for a few years, and this is like pre-internet era, and the only way you could really, if you had a minimal budget, the main way you could get the word out on your shows was handing out these pieces of paper,
right,
or putting the oatmeal paste on the telephone poles, and that was the way we did this guerrilla marketing back then. So I had all this music memorabilia, mixtapes, T-shirts, mix CDs, sampler tapes, and of course these flyers that I ended up saving. I was like hoarding them essentially. And I rediscovered them a few years later, and I said, wow, this is like a time capsule right here. I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate seeing these again. So I created an Instagram account. I started scanning them, uploading them. I called it the Flyer Vault because it's a vault of flyers. And the account kind of took off. Like, it got really popular.
Why 150 years? Because we're not going back to concerts from the 1800s, are we?
We are.
Oh, we are?
Oh, we are. The first
Seriously?
one, 1840 is the first show.
Was that when the Who farewell tour of 1840?
And you kept the flyer.
I worked with Rob Bowman. He's a pretty well-known musicologist. He's a professor of music at York University. He's a Grammy winner too, and we kind of fed off each other when we were doing the research for this book, and we just both wanted to go back and back and back. Like, when did live music really start in this city? And we found, I think it was the New Christie Minstrels. They came from like the south of the United States, and they were coming up here to raise money for the free slaves and all this kind of stuff. And it was just really incredible to see that there was this vibrant music scene in Toronto literally a few years after it was incorporated as a city.
In the modern era, not the 1800s, but in the, say the 60s and 70s and on, what is considered, or what do many consider sort of the ultimate Toronto concert of each era, like the Beatles coming to Madison or to Maple Leaf Gardens, or?
Well, if you go back to the swing and jazz era, it's definitely when all those guys came up here, like Benny Goodman and Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. I would say the jazz at Massey Hall shows are very legendary. You had this guy named Norman Granz. He was a big jazz promoter in North America, and he was doing massive shows at Massey Hall, bringing in everybody from Thelonious to Miles. You get into the 60s, of course, and then Motown and Stax arrive here. We talk about that in the book. And then, of course, the Rock Pile. Any show that happened at the Rock Pile, circa late 60s, the psychedelic classic rock era, is just beyond comprehension, especially Zeppelin. I mean, everybody talks about those Zeppelin shows.
Right.
Well, leafing through, and I hit on. You talk about venues. July 2nd, 1971, St. Lawrence Market, Deep Purple. Where at St. Lawrence Market?
Yeah, so right.
What? I don't recall. I'm old, and I don't recall that as a venue.
And either did I, and we discovered a ton of venues that the whole city has forgotten about.
Yeah.
And just by doing this research, we rediscovered these venues that hosted some incredible shows, like this one, for example, St. Lawrence Market at Deep Purple there. And it was actually it was across the street from today's St. Lawrence Market. I guess it ended up being demolished or something.
You know, and when you look through, it's that thing, you know, if I knew then what I know now, some of these bands that played in little tiny venues, as Deep Purple did, or The Who at the CNE Coliseum, which was 3,000 or 4,000 fans.
Yeah, but at the time, they're just how do you know that you're going to, like, you go to the St. Lawrence Market in 1971, some band's playing whatever, Smoke on the Water, and you're like, hey, this is cool. And you look back years later, you're like, I was there when there was like a few hundred people.
Or like the CFNY police picnics, you know, over in the island. People would go over, and the police in the early days of their careers and how these bands exploded. Yeah. You know what's amazing, too, about those two Beatles shows? They happened within a year of each other, too, I believe.
That was at the Gardens.
Yeah.
It was actually 3 in a row. So they came
Was it 3
Yeah,
here?
they came in 64, they came in 65, and then came in 66. And I believe after that tour, they didn't tour at all anymore.
And where did they
Yeah.
play? They
Maple Leaf Gardens.
All at the Gardens.
But they were all garden shows.
Yeah.
But you look through a book like this, and how many times has the Who been here, and all of the big band, Rolling Stones, and you think the Beatles, how huge they are, and in the city of Toronto, okay, within a 2-year window, that was it, and yet they're really, arguably, the biggest band ever.
And you look at 1966, the year Led Zeppelin performed in Toronto 6 times.
Yeah, that was actually 69.
Okay, 69.
Yeah. And those shows had a profound impact on Geddy Lee. We quoted him in the book. He was talking about some of those shows that happened in his teenage years that really kind of molded him into the rock star that he is today. And he said, he quoted, he said, if it wasn't for seeing Cream at Massey Hall in 68 and seeing Zeppelin at Rockpile in 69, essentially there'd be no Rush.
Now, where was the... I remember the name Rockpile. Where was that?
It was at Yonge and Davenport, the Masonic Temple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was the actual Rockpile.
See, yeah, the building's called the Masonic Temple,
Right.
but that room inside it was the
the
rock
Rock Pile.
pile. That's
Okay.
right.
Throw out some other names as well, because sometimes I'll be traveling around the city like I do, and you'll see old Lulu's Lounge or the Lee's Palace, and you kind of remember all these legendary rooms in Toronto. What are some of the rooms that people may have forgotten? I mean, the big ones: the Danforth Music Hall, Massey Hall, but of
course.
What are some of the other places?
We found a lot of incredible venues from the 40s and 50s that were pretty much the focal point for entertainment in Toronto. One that stands out is the Palace Pier, not too far from here.
Yeah.
But for a few years, everybody was coming to, I guess, the Humber Bay right there and watching all these incredible shows. Dizzy Gillespie came there. Bob Hope came there. All these acts would go there, but unfortunately in the 60s, it got demolished like many venues. Another venue that
Well, what's that other one down on the lake shore that I saw? Blue Rodeo right on the lake shore.
Sunnyside Pavilion, Palais Royale.
Maybe that was it, yeah.
Palais Royale is
Royale.
legendary.
Palais
I mean, the
Royale.
Stones-
It's still there though, isn't it?
It's still there for
Yeah.
like private events.
And by the way,
Yeah.
Palace Pier there's a couple of big high-end apartment buildings right over here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was also a venue. What about exhibition place? Like the exhibition, people coming in. Do you have any of those flyers?
Oh yeah, there's tons in there. I think we have the Bowie Serious Moonlight tour that was at CNE Stadium.
And a lot of them happened during the X.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah. And
get in free with your ticket.
That's what's
Yeah.
so amazing about when you look back in the 70s, 80s. You could get a day pass at Ontario Place or the X and get a free concert, or go to
Yeah.
Wonderland.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. Or go to Wonderland and get a show for like $8. The $8 Kingswood pass.
But I see the Rivoli, the Bamboo Club, all these places I went as a teenager.
Yeah,
as
so we did a
well.
chapter on the
Yeah.
Queen Street scene because Queen Street really was a hub for cool new music in Canada. So
Fred and I were lucky enough, over the years to introduce bands at different venues. What's the place at Wonderland called?
Kingswood.
Kingswood. That hosted some great shows over the years because we were there introducing them.
One of the best shows I ever saw was UB40 at Kingswood.
Yeah.
Fabulous. I remember this one too on Yonge Street, Le Coq d'Or. Ronnie Hawkins. Everybody good. No, but I remember
Le Coq d'Or?
Le Coq d'Or.
Legendary.
But
Yeah.
and then Ronnie Hawkins, and there was a lot of Americans during the Vietnam War and everything that sort of found their way up here. And
Rick James came up
became
here.
established.
George Clinton
Yeah.
ended up living here for a few
Yeah.
years. It was really incredible what Ronnie Hawkins was able to do for music in this city. And this is part of the research that we did, was just when he came here, I think it was around 58, 59 from, I believe, Arkansas. He turned Yonge Street into one of the hottest music strips in North America. Like, there's a period of time in the 60s and 70s where if you just walked from Yonge and Bloor all the way down to Yonge and Queen, you could have the pick of the litter, whatever you wanted to hear.
Ronnie tells a great story about Neil Young. Somebody said, "You got to go see this Neil Young kid." He said, "I walked into the bar and he said, you know, he was pretty good on the guitar, but that voice, he ain't going anywhere."
Which is what most people would have thought. Can I just have a quick look? Because I've only got the bio in front of me. I just want to. It's a beautiful. I know this is early, but it's a great Christmas gift. I'm sure that's part of the plan. It's it's beautifully put together. All these different flyers and little mini posters. And it seems reasonably priced. I can't see a price, but $35 Canadian. Come
Very
on,
reasonable.
people. It's got glossy pictures. Maple Leaf Gardens, the Rolling Stones. Look at those. It's amazing.
Maple Leaf Gardens, the sound wasn't the greatest at the Gardens. You went to see the band as much as you did to hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because somebody then you go to Massey Hall and it's like, well, completely different size and everything, but known for its sound.
But I love the old-fashioned look of some of these flyers. Like it says, Rolling Stones plus Patti LaBelle, The Vibrations, and then it just says, and other top recording artists. Like, who are you here to see? The Stones? Patti LaBelle? No.
Yeah.
I'm here for other top recording artists. They're amazing.
Yeah. No,
Like
that,
a
a lot of
you
these
spend
ads
a
are
lot of
beautiful to
time.
look at.
Spend a lot of time with that book. Wow.
Listen, my friend, even though we were confused when you came in the door, we were like, that's not Ted. What a great book this is. Daniel Tate and Rob Bowman. It's called The Flyer Vault, 150 Years of Toronto Concert History. And what is, so Getty attributes a lot of these shows to the genesis of the band.
That's right. Yep, and he loves Toronto, and he loves the project that we've been working on, and he was fully on board to be involved, and we appreciate him for that.
I guess. And how does that work? You get word to his people what you're doing and see if he bites?
Not at all. It was way more simple than that.
Yeah?
I realized, so one day I was checking Instagram, and I noticed some guy named Getty Images started liking a bunch of my posts, and then he started following me, and I was like, wait, I had to pinch myself. Getty Lee is following me on Instagram? What kind of bizarro world is this? So I ended up just messaging him on the app, and I said, hey, we're putting a book together. Would you like to be involved? And he's like, yeah, sure. I was like, really? It was that easy.
This is Canada.
It's Canada.
Yeah,
I
we're
guess
friendly.
so.
Well, he's retired now, too, isn't he? So
He's still busy.
Yeah, I
He's
bet.
got another book he's pushing, a beautiful book.
You know what's really cool is you open the book and it's got kind of this site map of Toronto and where all these clubs are, the Lee's Palaces and the Danforth, the Horseshoe. It really is cool to look back and see, the concert history of the city, but also all these venues that some of them aren't there anymore. And it'll bring back a lot of memories for people that grew up here going to concerts.
what was it, Bamboo Club, where the commercial was under the neon palms? Was that it?
El Macombo?
Oh, was that the El
El
Macombo?
Macombo, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Saw
Which
some
is
shows
undergoing
there.
a renovation. It's taken about 10 years, but
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be open sometime soon.
All the Whiskey Saigons and the opera houses. And anyways, listen, man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done, and thanks for popping in here. You didn't crash our show. This is a drop-in center, okay? We're open for business on the Queensway, man.
I love it.
And,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. The Flyer Vault, 150 years of
And again,
Toronto concert history.
What's the best way to get that book?
You can get it pretty much anywhere. Amazon, Indigo, and a bunch of local retailers downtown.